In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a broom. I love the idea of making things myself and using natural materials. So naturally, I had to make my own broom. The process is relatively the same, whether you're making a regular sweeping broom for the house or a witch's broom, as I will be doing in this case. Perhaps you need a witch's broom to complement a costume or a prop for a play. In one of my past videos where I talked about the dark history of black cats, which is closely tied into the legend of witches, I needed a witch's broom for a prop, which was the reason I made this broom in the first place, and I recorded the making of it. Here is a brief clip from my video called Dark History of Black Cats. You will find it on my playlist, Stories from History. So we have seen how both the witch and the black cats were victims, both accused of many things that may not be true. They were slandered, hated, accused of having magical powers, involved in the devil's black magic, doing witchcraft, and burned at the stake, all to no fault of their own. We begin our craft by going into the forest to select a slender, nearly straight young tree. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. A young tree can be easily cut with any number of handsaws. Next, remove all the branches, cutting as close to the main trunk of the tree as you can. We need to remove the bark to reveal a semi-smooth surface. It's going to have some rough edges on it. The only tool that I could find in my shop was this tool, but it worked for me. When the bark is all removed, you could sand the surface of the broom handle. You can use a belt sander or a palm sander, or just a block of wood with sandpaper stapled around it. Smooth off any rough edges. You'll have to put a little bit of extra work where there were formerly branches sticking out so you could get those little nubs off. But it doesn't have to be perfect if you're doing a witch's broom. Remember, it's okay if it's crooked or has some lumps or bumps on it. But if it's for the house, you want to put a lot more time sanding it so that you have a very smooth surface, so that it will be comfortable in your hands. It does take a little work removing all the bark, but I didn't mind the process. It was a comfortable, breezy day, and I love being outside on those kind of days. When it comes to making things, I find great pleasure in the process. Anyhow, no matter how long it may take, there's a satisfaction you get from making something for yourself from raw materials or even with just basic tools. The broom I am making is very similar to a pioneer broom or a primitive broom or what a colonial woman may have made herself. Back in the day, women knew all kinds of different skills. I am always interested in learning some of those old crafts. I'm going to just let this play in real time so you can get a realistic feel for what it's like to make a broom. The sounds of scraping the bark off and the gentle wind rustling in the leaves of the trees above. I may have made my broomstick longer than it needed to be. And you can see that it's not perfectly straight. That's okay. If you're making a broom for the house, you may want to purchase some sage grass or broom sage as it is called. I could not find any at the time. And since it was October everywhere I looked, all that was available was this cinnamon branches or cinnamon sticks, or I don't know, I guess it's not sticks because it has like branches on it. And they smell so good. So I grabbed a few bunches to make my broom with, and I wouldn't mind it sitting around my house smelling good during the fall. To sew my broom together, I decided to use artificial sinew, since I always keep lots of it available for when I make baskets. It's very strong. You can also use waxed cord, but that's a little bit more expensive. To prepare the broom handle, I placed a small nail about 3 inches from the bottom of the broom. This helps to lock in the first threads that we will be applying. We start by tying a knot with the sinew and then start wrapping around the base of the handle just above the nail head, making several passes around, alternating on each side of the nail head. This secures the thread so that it doesn't slip. We're going to be pulling it snugly throughout the entire process. I place the spool of sinew on the floor and hold it with my feet so that I can keep the cord tight as I bind the bundles to the handle. When you add a new bundle, bring it up under the thread that is running down to the spool as you turn the handle, keeping the thread tight the whole time. I add a bit of my cinnamon branches a little bit at a time, turning the handles to secure each bundle in its place. I continue this process as I work around the base of the broom until all the bundles are secured around the handle. Once all my bundles are surrounding the entire perimeter of the handle, I then begin to make a band. I want the band of thread to be about 1/4 inch wide, so I just keep wrapping and wrapping and going round and round and round until it's 1/4 inch wide. One band is not enough. I need to add more bands. So I make another band about 3/4 of an inch above the first band, making it also about 1/4 inch wide. Then I repeat that process one more time until I have 3 1/4 inch bands going around the bundles. You can make as many bands as you feel necessary to hold your bundles in place. 3 was all I needed, and it's all I really had room for because of the length of my cinnamon sticks. As you begin your last band, take another piece of 12 to 18 inch cord, make a loop, place that loop under the last band as you begin wrapping around and around. You should see the loop sticking out on one side of the band. When your last band is wide enough, 1/4 inch, hold it tight. Cut the end of the thread about 18 inches in length. Take that end of the cord, slip it through the loop that you placed earlier, and then pull that loop to the other side of the band. That will trap the end of the cord under the band. Now it's time to do some stitching. Pull off about 2 arms length of cord. Fold it in half, making a loop on one end. Make a double loop, then slip the loop down over your stick end of your handle. Bring it all the way down to below the first band that you made. We're going to stitch the bundles in place. Using a large blunt needle, insert the end of your cord into the eye of the needle. Then begin stitching, slipping under the line of cord, grabbing a bit of cinnamon sticks or grass or whatever you're using. The thread goes under the line of thread, crossing over, grabbing a bit of twigs or grass, then crossing back over the line, pulling tight with each stitch. Keep repeating this process as you work all the way around the perimeter of the broom. When we get all the way around, we're going to tie it back onto itself, making a double overhand knot. Now, take both loose ends, threading them through the needle, run the needle all the way through the grasses or twigs from the top to the bottom, and then on the opposite end, cut your string. You can add more stitching lines as needed, especially if you're making a working broom, of which I made 3 stitching lines on my broom. The stitching lines should be closer together than the 1/4 inch wide bands, which are 3/4 of an inch from each other. Finally, I trimmed off the tops of the cinnamon branches. If you're using grasses, you can more easily trim it using a utility knife. The cinnamon branches are thicker than grasses, so they took a bit more effort, so I used some heavier cutters. If you're making a working broom for the house, you may want to trim the bottom edges evenly. Since I was making a witch's broom, I left the ends as they were, because I don't mind it being kind of ragged. There we have it, a witch's broom. I decided the handle was too light and new looking, so I took it to my woodwork shop and stained it a darker color to match the cinnamon branches. This also gave it a more aged look, which is what I was going for. You could see that I did round the end of my broom. My prop is now ready. I may make another one for the house for the experience to make a much finer broom, just because. I always like to improve my skills. I hope you enjoyed this process as much as I did, and that you will give it a try. Enjoy another clip from my dark history about black cats, wherein I used my broom. Ding Dong Bell was such a poem written during this dark period when cats were hated, feared, and warded off. Cats were treated badly, driven out of towns and villages because of the superstition against them. Thanks for watching.